Welcome back. I am Conley with TCGplayer.com. We are coming back at you, Shadows of Innistrad set review, brew review, if you will, covering the green cards on this video. We just got done with the red cards, and just to catch up to speed, going to be paying attention to a couple of specific things in green now that we know what green's working with. One of them are wolves. We're tracking some wolves over here from the red group. Obviously, we can also do a search for wolves from the rest of standard here. And then also, I went ahead and jotted down the clue creators and the clue build-arounds, the investigate build-arounds that we saw in blue and I guess white to a lesser degree, and artifacts. So we'll keep these in mind because green has a lot to do with clues, and want to see if any of that's relevant here. I can go ahead and delete this. Here's the vampire list as well, so if you want access to that, feel free to jot that down. It's just a starter list, obviously. And yeah, let's jump into green here. So we got aim high, not a constructed card. Moving on. All right, Briar-Bitch Patrol. So this is our kind of our first big, I would say best, so the payoff on Fleeting Memories is to mill 3, which is reasonable, but Briar-Bitch Patrol actually like sets you up for a huge payoff if you sacrifice 3 clues in a single turn. Whether it's your opponent's turn or your turn. So you have to spend 6 mana and you draw 3 cards, of course, in that process. You put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield. So if you do this at the end of your opponent's turn, you'll get effectively haste, which will be a big benefit. If you do a quick search here for, let's do creatures. Let's do converted mana costs. Nope, converted mana costs. Let's go. I'll be generous and start at 7. So like these are the kind of cards that we're working with in the new standard to put into play. Obviously we have Eldrazi, so we have Ulamog and Kozilek, which are both great options. Obviously you don't get their cast trigger, but they're still just gigantic things. Dragon Lord Atarka is still running around and going to be doing insane things. There's multiple fight cards, whether you want to play with like Regent or something else. Excuse me. This guy supports a bunch of things, which is kind of awesome. Playable, or no, sorry, not this. Playable, probably playable, but no one's played with it. This card's probably playable as well. It's kind of an interesting card that I would like to see what happens with it. Same for Emiria Shepherd, another playable card that really has never found a home. So my point is that like if you're cheating any of these things into play after having drawn 3 cards, World Breaker is another reasonable one. That's just like a pretty cool ability. It's uncommon, so again, it has stats kind of built for limited, so you're not necessarily going to be super excited with the body for this in constructed. But if you do play this and then let it survive for a turn and then sacrifice 3 things, maybe that's something worthwhile, worth considering. I'm not going to mark him up as like the reason to build clues, because if he is, then clues are not going to make it into constructed. But he is at least a cool niche card to think about that could do something before he rotates out of standard. All right, moving down, we get a 3/2 for 3 that investigates and dies. No, thank you. This card's very, very playable. It beats up like a Jutai and other dragons. An edict for flyers is actually better than just a general edict since they can't protect it with random ground creatures. You could also kill other annoying flyers in the format, aggressive cards, for example, potentially vampires. Should be a very, very playable sideboard card. Moving on, +1/+1, and you investigate, and then you get +1/+1 per clue. So I don't think this is a constructed output because the payoff is too small. Like even if you're building a clue making deck, you probably will never have more than like 3 or 4 clues out, and that's just, that's an okay effect, but 1 mana for +3/+3 or +4/+4 is not super exciting and constructed unless you're playing it like an infect deck or something. But because we're already committing our resources to being the clue deck, we really don't get the option to like do anything fancy with this. Maybe there's a double damage clue deck or something weird, but I'm not gonna hang my head on it. I still wrote it down over here because it does investigate, worst case scenario. Crawling Season. So you mill yourself for 2 a turn, and whenever 1 land goes to your graveyard per turn, you get 1/1/1 green creature. You can't, if you mill yourself for 2, you only get 1 insect. If you discard 2 card lands in 1 turn, you only get 1. So keep that in mind. Again, that's kind of one of those clauses that would probably not be on there if this were rare, but it needs to be on there to balance for limited. So as a result, the card gets weaker for constructed overall. There are a bunch of cards that do put lands in the graveyard. Gather the Pack probably does, and then you get to make an additional one and while grabbing a couple things. This puts it into your rest of the bottom of your library. That's what I thought. Molten Vortex puts lands in the graveyard, of course. Magmatic Insight puts cards in the graveyard. Tormenting Voice is another good one, as we've mentioned a million times by now. Jace, of course. You can put a land in your graveyard on each turn with Jace and get a 1/1. I'm not saying anything to try to sell you on this card because I don't think it's necessarily that great, but it is one of the few enchantments that sticks around and self-mills you every single turn, so it's playable in that respect, and maybe you get 3 or 4 1/1s out of it and you're happy. Cryptolith Rite. So you turn all your creatures into birds of paradise. This feels like something that can be very easily broken. Maybe combo it with Intruder Alarm, which untaps all your creatures whenever you play a creature, or something along those lines. But I don't have a deck for this yet. I tried to brew one, and I couldn't come up with anything in standard. But it's one of those cards that is randomly going to just pop up, and a combo deck's gonna be built around it, and you're gonna be like, "Whoa, that's how that works." But yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing to think about. As I said, I couldn't find the pieces to really get anything making infinite mana or do anything too cool right now. It's possible that you just want to play it with a bunch of Eldrazi spawn, or Eldrazi Scions, which you can tap for any color mana and then sacrifice them for colorless mana and just use it as like a ramp engine. So there are some things to do with this right now, but it's one of those cards to keep your eye on, to keep brewing with. I don't think anything's going to come together in the short term, but it might be like Rally the Ancestors, where in the late part of its standard reign, it just like randomly pops up. All right, Cult of the Waxing Moon. So this, whenever you transform anything, if the other side is not a human, you get a 2/2 wolf green token. So this works with all colors, not just werewolves. But it's just kind of a weird build around. I don't think anyone's going to build a transform deck in Constructed, and if they do, it will be werewolves, which I don't think this is strong enough for, since a vanilla 5/4 that puts vanilla 2/2s into play is just not exciting. So yeah, I'm gonna move on from this guy, but he is a build around. He probably could do something cool if you come up with some. When we get to the transform cards, I guess we'll remember this guy and see if there's anything that like transforms back and forth a million times for free into non-humans on both sides, because that might be cool, but I doubt it. Deathcap Cultivator. This guy's A+ constructed card. I mentioned how good Graphstone was when we went over it, and that's because it's a 2-mana mana ramp. This is 2-mana mana ramp. It's kind of similar to Rattleclaw Mystic in that it provides a little bit of color fixing, a little bit of ramp, a little bit of a body, and then a relevant secondary ability. In this case, he's a relevant like removal ability sort of thing. Rattleclaw Mystic was more of a burst kind of ability. But yeah, this guy should be quite playable. He's a human. He color fixes for black-green, which is nice. I've been playing a Leaf Gilder. If you look at my standard decks, I've been playing this. Where is that? Dust Devils. Open Sesame. I've been playing 4 Leaf Gilders in many of my decks, so you can obviously compare a Leaf Gilder side by side to a Deathcap Cultivator here, and you can see how we might have gotten a little bit better. So certainly a playable card. Should be a big player in Constructed. Mid-range decks, aggressive decks, human decks. We'll see. Equestrian Skill. No. Fork in the Road. I kind of like this card. It's very weird. So it's 2 mana. You lay up the land, but then you also throw a basic land in your graveyard, which does things like trigger that last card we saw to put a 1/1 into play. It does things like trigger Gitrog monster, which we're going to go over in the multicolor cards. That's probably my favorite card in the set. I just love me a giant toad monster. But yeah, Fork in the Road is an interesting card. I don't think it's priced for Constructed. If it costs a single green, and like the last Innistrad had Lay of the Land for a single green, this set has Lay of the Land for a single green, and they both have advantages. The Innistrad had Morbid, you put the land into play. This set is a rare that we're going to get to here in a second. I guess I can just... I don't know its name, so I'm going to go down because I feel bad. I don't know the name of the card. It's 1 green and has Delirium. I guess I just look for the 1 green card. There it is. Traverse the Ulvenwald. So here we have Lay of the Land, searches for a basic land. It then has an upside of, if you have Delirium, you get to grab any creature or any land, not just basic land, with this 1 mana spell. So it turns into like Worldly Tutor, or Journey, or not Journey, Sylvan Scrying. So you can see how like you know, 1 mana for Lay of the Land plus upside is a reasonable thing they're willing to do. By the way, I'm probably not going to talk about the card when we get there, since kind of I mean we'll go over it quickly. But so if you look at Fork in the World, we're paying an extra mana for a significantly worse upside because we're going to have 2 basic lands. One goes to the graveyard, one goes to your hand. So you're really only laying the land, and then you're milling 1 land for your deck. So I would have really liked to see this cost 1 green. At that point, it might have been playable and constructed. At 2 mana, I highly, highly doubt it. It's a really cool flavor, really cool card, but this is as far as I go. Did we get that? Anybody? No? All right. Gloom Widow, limited. Graph Mole. This guy, this is a clue build around. Hell yes, Mr. Graph Mole. You got to have some mole in your life. Graph Mole is the type of card that makes the clue deck work because he sticks around and he gives you a ton of life. Not only is he giving you 3 life per clue, which means you're paying clues turn into 2 mana, gain 3 life, draw a card. That's like you want to spend 2 mana on that all the time. Like you just do that ad infinite. So in addition to that, you're paying 3 mana for a 2/4 here, which is like not bad. Like it's prevented. You can't die to bolt or fiery temper or anything like that. Fiery Impulse included. It blocks a lot of creatures. It deals with aggro creatures really nicely. 2 power is going to kill a lot of things. 4 toughness is going to live through a lot of things. This card just seems like if clues are going to make it constructed and this guy is not a part of the 75, I'm going to be shocked. And by when I say clues, I mean like all-in clue decks. Obviously, some cards with clue making abilities are going to see constructed play just on raw power level. But if a clue deck sees play and this guy's not a part of it, I will be super surprised. Also, just look at this art. This is just masterful. I love this. This guy's awesome. He's a mole beast. He's just a nut. Groundskeeper is theoretically playable, reusable, activated ability, returning lands for hand. You just need a very good reason to use it. If you look back at the discard list that I had here, I would say this is probably the #1 reason. It turns Groundskeeper, becomes colorless, green, red, deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Over and over and over again, which is kind of nice. But outside of that, I would not look too far into the Groundskeeper. Owlpark Resurgence. So we have a Flash Anthem for werewolves that also gives them trample. It also works on wolves, I guess. So this is obviously going to be noted here. This is probably the reason to look at wolves as an archetype. I don't think I passed up any wolves. Let me double check. Moldy Spider. Human. Yeah, I definitely didn't. All right, so yeah, this is probably the reason to go wolves. 3 mana Anthem that gives trample and has flash is like pretty strong, I would say, even in constructed. Like Glorious Anthem's already a reasonable card. This is easier to cast, has flash, and gives trample. Obviously, it only works for 2 creature types, which is why I could do all that. But if you're playing that deck, then it seems kind of sweet. So I think wolves. It probably will take. Eldritch Moon, which I assume is going to have a ton of wolves based on the name Eldritch Moon. I assume that it's going to take that set before werewolves becomes a tribal possibility, but we'll see because there's at least this Inexorable Blob. I like this guy, but I think that he's like probably too weak of a rate. Like even when you turn on Delirium, which is not easy, your 3 mana 3/3 has to then be able to untap and attack before you get a benefit. And then when it does, all you get is another 3/3 tapped and attacking, but it's not even an inexorable blob. So if they block your original inexorable blob, that's when your fun stops and you just have a random 3 mana, or you have a random 3/3 token sitting around as your reward, which is just not that good. So like the input here takes a lot of work. The output is not that exciting. Compare this to Kessig Cage Breakers, which is kind of what this card reminds me of, which it was a 5 mana 3/4. And it put a 2/2 attacking wolf into play for each creature in your graveyard. So it had a very similar input, very similar output, but it was just more exciting and limited and not playable and constructed really outside of like the combo decks that just wanted to go all off. This card is like even worse. It's got no huge payoff. Like there's no dream to like kill your opponent with this in 1 turn. And the deck that you need, the way you need to set this up is probably even more difficult because you have to include a bunch of random types in your deck and enchantments and artifacts and stuff. So not a huge fan of this card. I mean, in theory, I'm a fan of it. I just don't like how it actually plays out, I'm pretty sure. I guess you could play this in your human tribe deck. I would strongly advise against playing either of these cards. Although this one is a green piggy with this. I don't even know what's going on here, but he's a thing. He's a thing. Another 1 mana 1/2. It's the set of the 1 mana 1/2. Lone Dryad is Springleaf Drum on a body. I assume, I don't know why this is a Dryad Horror, but whatever. I assume this is playable in a very, very strange world, but I mean, it's Springleaf Drum and it's a 1-mana 1/2, so like theoretically both those cards are playable. Obviously, putting Springleaf Drum on a creature makes it much worse, but I would not be surprised if one random deck plays this card or something. If it was an elf, I would have higher hopes though, I guess, because I have a relevant creature type. Nope. Might be on reason. Do not reason this in your decks. All right, Moldgraph Scavenger. Do not. Wait, what does this guy do? All right, 2-mana 0/4. I like what we're working with here. I like a 2-mana 0/4. I like a defense creature. The thing is green though. Green doesn't really need 2-mana 0/4 control cards. It does get +3/+0 when you have Delirium, so it's a 2-mana 3/4 at that point. Obviously, the callback here would be a common Tarmogoyf. Because Tarmogoyf, when it has 4 types in the art, would be a 2-mana 4/5. In this case, you get a 2-mana 3/4 at common. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of cool. I doubt this is constructed playable because it's harder to set up than Goyf, and it has a worse fail state. Like Tarmogoyf's fail state is a 2/3 or whatever. This guy's fail state is a 0/4. So I assume this guy's not very playable, but at the same time, if you can consistently get a 2-mana 3/4, that card is very, very constructed playable. So I don't know. I would not be surprised if this card was like ended up being very good once we get more Graveyard Enablers, but it kind of sits on the radar in the meantime. In terms of limited, I have no idea. This guy could be a sleeper for sure there, because you don't need him to be huge on turn 2 in limited. All right, Moonlight Hunt. So this is kind of weird because it's a fight card, but they don't fight back. So it's a one-sided fight, and it's all of your werewolves and wolves deal damage to the creature you choose, and it's a 2-mana instant. So I imagine if you're going to play a werewolf tribal deck or a wolf tribal deck, that this is just a 2-mana terminate. Most of the time, obviously you need some wolves in play, but you need 1 or 2 wolves, and you're going to be killing the thing you're trying to kill with this, because it doesn't count a number of wolves. Each wolf deals its power to that creature. So you don't need 5 wolves in play to kill a creature. You need 1 or 2. This card seems pretty sweet. Obviously only good in wolf decks. Alright, the creepy obsessive Skinner guy. This card, it looks pretty weak, and it's probably not that strong, but if the +1/+1 counter deck that's existed around in Standard for a while has any chance at surviving, I don't know if this will even. This is all. Oh no, it has 7 or more. I was like, these are all the things that have. So here are the cards in the set that have +1/+1 counters interactions still. Obviously, we're looking for by +1/+1 counter interactions. We actually want the things that pay us, not the things that just get +1/+1 counters. So like, yes, this gets +1/+1 counters. Yes, this gets +1/+1 counters. But we do have things like Avatar the Resolute that's still around. So that's kind of a nice little ditty. I don't know if these guys become. I don't know. What else do we have? Anything super exciting? I'm looking. I wanted to go back up. How does Renown work? Wait, let me see. Must deal combat damage to it. If it's Renown, put a +1. Okay, so it has to. It's not just if it has a +1/+1 counter and it becomes Renowned. It has to actually get in there. That's what I was double checking. We got. I would not say this is a payoff, but it's a thing. Ooh, Undergrowth Champion still around. This guy's pretty sweet with Obsessive Skinner. You put a +1/+1 counter on him every single turn, and then he can keep attacking every single turn. It's pretty nice. Kalidas is always good with +1/+1 counters. This card's always good with +1/+1 counters. But we lost a lot of the the doubling season. We lost a lot of the big, huge payoffs for +1/+1 counters. But there's still some stuff around. So if this guy's going to make a deck, obviously Hangerback Walker's still around, which is pretty good. You can just put a +1/+1 counter on it every turn. If this is going to make a deck, that's going to be the deck it's going to make. And that's about all the time I'm willing to spend on this guy. Alright, Pack Guardian. Wolf Spirit, that puts another wolf into play. 4 mana, flash, and you get 6 power and 5 toughness. Wait, I don't know why I wrote Wolf Spirit. Pack Guardian. This card seems pretty exceptional in Constructed and Limited. Limited, it's a total blowout. In Constructed, you get 6 power for 4 mana at the end of your opponent's turn, which is pretty insane. Plays around Wrath really well. You can even eat creatures in constructed. When you're putting 6 power into play at instant speed, you can eat constructed creatures pretty easily with that. This card seems not like it's going to see play in every green deck, but certainly very, very playable. I'm pretty excited by it. Also, it's kind of, again, really cool art. It's a wolf with glowing underbelly and paws and stuff. This is a wolf with a mostly irrelevant ability in constructed, so I'm going to pass on him. I'm writing him down. Rabid Bite. So green gets sorcery speed, Fall of the Hammer. I'm going to pull Fall of the Hammer, so... Oh, wait, that didn't work. Bam! 2 mana. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. So green gets it at sorcery speed. This time around, also just got that wolf card at instant speed. So it's kind of interesting to see that this is not a true fight. The werewolves get to like do their attacking without being fought back against too much, I suppose. Kind of cool. I mean, this is maybe constructed playable. I doubt it, though. Sorcery speed's kind of a lame thing. 3 mana naturalized that lets you investigate. No, it's sorcery speed, so probably not constructed playable, but you know, whatever. Season's Past. One of my favorite cards in the set. The dream with this is to draw 10 cards for 6 mana, which is insane, and then you put this on the bottom of your library, and you can do it again later on. I love everything about this deck. I plan on building a bunch of crazy decks with a bunch of different mana costs, and just to try it out. It just seems like a really cool... Like, you could build a green control deck with this card. And the thing is, it's really difficult to just brew up a deck real quick and show you because there's so many possibilities with this deck. It's literally open-ended. As long as you're birthing potting up the chain, like you want, you know, some number 1, some number 2, some number 3s. But the thing is, when you're returning cards with different costs, like the cards of higher cost have bigger impacts. So you really want to have more diversity in like the 3 to 6, 7 range. And like, you know, you can just have one spell that costs 1 in your entire deck and you'll be fine. But you typically want a little bit of variety as your spells go up the stack, up the curve stack a little bit, just so you can have more options when you cast this, and you can dig yourself out of more situations. But this card seems super awesome. I'm very, very excited to play with it. Yeah, there'll be, I'm sure I'll have entire weeks where I just talk with this card and brew standard decks and potentially even modern decks around this. So awesome card. Very excited about that one. All right, second harvest. I guess it just populates all your tokens. I mean, if that's your thing, do it. It's probably constructed playable, but it's 4 mana instant, so I assume it could be constructed playable in the right token deck. I'm just not. It's not my type of thing. It doesn't whip my willy, if you know what I'm saying. Silver Fur Partisan is another werewolf build around, so we're gonna write this guy down. This one is actually pretty cool. 3 mana 2/2. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control becomes target spell or ability, you get a 2/2. But it can be, or no, becomes the target of an instant or sorcery spell, not spell or ability. I've filled that in on my own. But that spell or a sorcery or instant can be from either player, and you get a 2/2. I don't know how good this card is. Like, this card's better defensively, where like your guys can't be bolted without you getting a 2/2. But I wonder what you could do with this offensively. Like, if you just play a bunch of giant growths and just make a bunch of 2/2s, how good is that? It's weird because you can't even combo with the Wolf Fight card. Moonlight Hunt. Choose target creature you don't control. Each creature, so it doesn't combo with this. It does combo with Rabid Bite. I don't know. Now I'm interested. Now I'm interested to see where this guy sees play. He seems like a defensive card, like he might be a sideboard card for the Wolf deck. Alright, we got Soul Swallower here. Beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 more cards, you get a 3+1/+1 counter. So he's 4 mana, 6/6. So this guy seems way better than the 2 mana 3/4. So this guy just keeps growing. Yeah, I can get behind this card in constructed. I don't really think I've seen this card in the spoiler before, but I can definitely get behind this card. I mean, it's kind of got the scoop mob feel to it, where you play it and you protect it for a turn or 2, and then it just goes off. But like, it also has the Converge card, the tree. It feels a lot like him. This is a 4 mana 6/6 trample with vigilance when you get him maxed. Obviously, this card keeps getting bigger every single turn, but yeah, I don't know. I could definitely see this card seeing constructed play. I could also see it just never finding the home because it's not quite strong enough to like be forced into a deck. Like, there's those cards where you're just like, well, I better build a deck around this. It's too strong. This card's not quite to that power level, but in a deck that can achieve Delirium and is kind of a mid-range green-black deck or green-white deck or something, especially like the +1/+1 counter deck, for example. If that deck can get Delirium, then it might love this type of card. All right, Stoic Builder is a bad version of Groundskeeper, I would say. Thornhide Wolves is a bad. No, it's actually a good card, limited. 5 mana, 4/5, but we're gonna talk about it now. All right, Tireless Tracker, another Investigate card. This one's a good one too. 3 mana, 3/2 is playable. You get 1 Investigate for this. No, whenever a land enters the battlefield in your control, you investigate. So you get multiple Investigates for this. And then whenever you sack a clue, this guy gets bigger. So he is he's straight into whatever clue deck we're building. I feel like the clue deck is kind of pulled in a couple weird directions. Like this card and Graph Mole, they do work together, and you'll play them both. But this card's payoff is kind of aggressive, whereas the Mole's payoff is defensive, but at the same time, this card just investigates you every single turn, which is probably good enough as that ability. Like if this didn't even have the sacrifice or clue +1/+1 counter clause, it would probably be playable. So I don't know, I'm kind of torn, but I like that we're picking up more tools for that deck. Traverse the Ulvenwald. We talked about this card. I think it's extremely strong. It means 1 mana tutor for a creature or a land, which is just crazy good. Obviously, Delirium needs to be hit, but let's assume you can do that. Well, let's assume that not every deck can do that, therefore this card is not universally playable. But the decks that will play this card will be able to get Delirium. But yeah, this card is, I would say, modern playable, legacy playable. Not sure about vintage, but maybe, because it does grab non-basic lands. And Delirium is pretty easy to hit in vintage, where there's just insane powerful artifacts and enchantments and lands and planeswalkers everywhere. But yeah, this card seems like it's going to. It's really weird because we have Oath of Nissa in the format, which happens to be right here, so I'll pull it up. And Oath of Nissa kind of feels like it occupies the space as like the really cool 1 mana green selection card. But now you have Traverse the Ulvenwald, which also does that, but also wants to play with Oath of Nissa because Oath of Nissa is a legendary enchantment that goes to your graveyard. It's just like this really, I don't know. You're going to be playing a lot of card filtering in your green decks coming soon. All right, new prime time. Look, there's all these U's and V's in green. Look at this. We're at Ulvenwald, and we still have like 6 cards. Ulvenwald Hydra is Primeval Titan that checks your lands for his power and toughness. He has reach instead of trample, and he only gets 1 land card. That's the best way to describe this card. Which means he's probably very constructed playable. He's nowhere close to as good as Primeval Titan. It actually makes me sick to look at this card side by side of Primeval Titan because, well, here we'll just do it real quick. I guess this is, no, we pulled up. Look at this. Same cost, 6/6 base, so they're roughly the same. I guess the Hydra's a 7/7 because it finds a land itself. Trample, better than Reach most of the time, I would say, because you want to be attacking with the card. Although the Hydra maybe is more of a defensive card because of Reach and because of the fact that it doesn't need to attack to put the trigger on. But Titan, you just get to draw a second card right away. Well, not even draw, put it into play, which lets you make it into a combo card, which we've seen with Amulet. And then that happens every single turn. You just get 2 more lands. Disgusting. And yet this card perfectly constructed playable. It might be an Eldrazi style card. Like you might play this. You might play this instead of the 5/8 because this reliably gets a land. You know, you get if you have 6 lands in play and you go grab a Shrine of the False Gods, like that's guaranteed to give you 2 mana next turn. You can cast an 8 or 9 drop. So kind of a cool card. Masteries. We got another Investigate creator. That when you sack clues, you get 1/1s, and when a non-token dies, you get to make a clue. I guess this is playable. I feel like if you're not playing non-token creatures, then the output's not good. But both abilities are fine. I'm not sure if this is the build around you want. I mean, it's nice that it's green. It's enchantment. It doesn't interact. It has a way to produce tokens. It has a way to output the sacrificing of tokens. But I'm not sure. So this card, again, it's kind of like Oath of Nissa, where it's a 1-mana enchantment that looks to the top 4 cards, or looks to the top of your library. This one can grab artifacts, creatures, enchantments, lands, or planeswalkers, aka a permanent card. And then the rest go to the graveyard. So it's a little different, where it fills up your graveyard 4 cards. You can turn on Delirium with this because it's an enchantment, and it gets a wider range of cards. Oath of Nissa only gets creatures and lands. No, creatures, lands, and planeswalkers, excuse me, so it doesn't get artifacts or enchantments. But I still think Oath of Nissa is just a better card. It costs 1 mana, has the upside of making your planeswalkers, kind colorless effectively. So the Vessel is an interesting card. I think you could probably get away with playing it, but I think you definitely want to play Oath of Nissa first. So if you're not already playing 4 Oath of Nissa, play that. And then you probably want to play Traverse the Ulvenwald, then play Vessel. So you need to go pretty far down the chain before you run this card, even though it is playable, I would say. All right, a human gains double strike for 4 mana. No, thank you. Although it's a bear, it's playable, but I just can't imagine spending 4 mana on that. Watch on the Web, a pretty sweet limited card with an awesome line of text. I really wish they would have just said can block 8 creatures. Like the thing is, it's a spider, so you're trying to sell that it has 8 legs by saying it can block 8 creatures, but then you have to write 7 on the card. Like that's awkward. I know that it's the text. You need to say 7 additional creatures, but I would have just liked can block 8 creatures each combat and just break the rule and make it actually work. Because now you have to like piece it together, and it's not as fun. I feel like. All right, Weirding Wood. This is a playable Fertile Ground, if you will. It's 1 more mana than Fertile Ground, but it essentially has the same output in terms of getting you +1 mana. You get to filter a little bit better because you get to add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool, so that's nice. But the big benefit here is you get a delayed draw trigger, effectively delayed draw trigger because of the Investigate. But you can just tap the mana, the land that you played this on. If let's say you had 4 mana and you played this on your untapped land, now that land just taps to sacrifice the Investigate token right away. So that seems like pretty interesting and pretty strong to me. Like you can play this as a 3-drop in your ramp deck, turn it into card advantage later. Kind of feels the Hedron alignment role. Not Hedron alignment. What the hell was the name of that card? Hedron Archive. Oh, Hedron Archive is still legal? No, wait. This is not. This is. Let me double check. Now I know what to set things. I got to double check. This is in Battle for Zendikar. Oh wow, it is legal. Why did I feel like this was in an older set? This is still around for a while. Well, that makes me excited. I don't know why I thought this was an older set. All right, so Hedron Archive's still around. Weirding Wood even works better with that because that's another 2 colorless source to activate for clues that draws cards. So Weirding Wood might be the green Hedron Archive. I mean, you only get +1 mana out of it, but it costs 1 mana less, and then you get to draw your card without losing your mana production. So pretty cool card in terms of a Fertile Ground to round things out here. So I'm excited for that one as well. So we actually have a pretty good list of clue things here. I'm going to get a clue deck together for the notes, so be sure to check out the notes on TCGplayer.com that go with these videos, and you'll see probably a clue deck built there. You'll see a wolf deck built there. You'll see this vampire deck in the notes. That'll have links to everything as well. So yeah, be sure to check that out. And as always, thank you for watching. This has been Red and Green for our look at Shadows over Innistrad here at TCGplayer.com. Tomorrow we will be back with the double face cards, all of the multicolored cards, and then I'm going to look at my top 8 cards from the set, and for Constructed at least. And yeah, this has been the Brew Review. Thank you for hanging out with me, and we'll be back tomorrow. Take care.